This podcast is supported by MIDI Health. Are you in midlife, feeling dismissed, unheard, or just plain tired of the old healthcare system? You're not alone. For too long, women's serious midlife health issues have been trivialized, ignored, and met with a just deal with it attitude. Many of us have been made to feel ashamed or forgotten. In fact, even today, 75% of women seeking care for menopause and perimenopause issues are left entirely untreated. But here's the powerful truth. It's time for a change. It's time for MIDI. MIDI is not just a healthcare provider. It's a women's telehealth clinic, founded and supported by world-class leaders in women's health. What sets MIDI apart? We are the only women's telehealth brand covered by major insurance companies, making high-quality expert care accessible and affordable. Our clinicians provide one-on-one, face-to-face consultations where they truly listen to your unique needs. We offer a full range of holistic, data-driven solutions, from hormonal therapies and weight loss protocols to lifestyle coaching and preventative health guidance. This isn't one-size-fits-all care. This is care uniquely tailored for you. At MIDI, you will join our patients who feel seen, heard, and prioritized. You will find that our mission is clear: to help all women thrive in midlife, giving them access to the health care they deserve. Because we believe midlife isn't the middle at all. It is the beginning of your second act. Ready to feel your best and write your second act script? Visit joinmidi.com today to book your personalized insurance-covered virtual visit. That's joinmidi.com. MIDI, the care women deserve.
Everyone talks about summer like it's supposed to be carefree. But if this season brings up money stress, body stress, family stress, or social stress, that's real too. Growth therapy can help with that. Whether it's your first time in therapy or your 50th, Grow makes it easier to find a therapist who fits you, not the other way around. They connect you with thousands of independent licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person visits, nights and weekends. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. And if something comes up, you can cancel up to 24 hours in advance at no cost. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Grow accepts over 100 insurance plans, including Medicaid in some states. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/booknow to get started. That's growtherapy.com/booknow. growtherapy.com/booknow. Availability and coverage by state and insurance plan. Ever wonder why scam calls feel so specific? Why they somehow already know your name, your city, or even your address? It's usually because of data brokers. These companies collect your personal information from across the internet and sell it online, usually without you even realizing it. Things like your phone number, home address, family members, and even places you've lived. And once your information is out there, it spreads fast. That's where Aura comes in. Aura automatically finds your personal information on data broker sites and submits removal requests for you. Then Aura keeps monitoring to help make sure your information stays gone. You can even see where your data was found and removed. And Aura goes beyond data removal. You also get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. Right now, you can try Aura free at aura.com/hidden. That's aura.com/hidden.
You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
You have my sword.
And you have my bow.
And my trowel.
Hi, you're listening to episode 69 of And My Trowel, where we look at the fantastic side of archaeology and the archaeological side of fantasy. I'm Tilly.
And I'm Ash.
And today we're going to be continuing our discussion from last episode where we were looking at the map. The map. That's how far we got through this book. We just got stuck on the map. And one of the things we were talking about with the map was how many different languages there are on it and how that language is different in all of the different language versions of the book The Hobbit. So to follow up on that, we have a little surprise for you.
An intel and Talov va Hobbit de Furoch. Habatel grot saloch bokavan, a valanje hin botikin is boltra rollig. Och habatel chirum laun geneach van ons nach rosso juchen nokauri ike. Betel Hobbit van, als ein kilge korstach.
In einer Höhle in der Erde, da lebte ein Hobbit. Nicht in einem schmutzigen, nassen Loch, in das die Enden von irgendwelchen Würmern herabbaumelten und das nach Schlamm und Moder roch. Auch nicht etwa in einer trockenen Kieshöhle, die so kahl war, dass man sich nicht einmal niedersetzen oder gemütlich frühstücken konnte. Es war eine Hobbithöhle. Und das bedeutet Behaglichkeit.
So, those were 2 recordings of the same part of The Hobbit. Actually,
Yeah, the beginning.
the very beginning, which I will also quickly read out in English now. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit, not a nasty, dirty, wet hole filled with the ends of worms and an oozy smell, nor yet a dry, bare, sandy hole with nothing in it to sit down on or to eat. It was a hobbit-hole, and that means comfort.
She might have guessed that was the English one.
Oh, well done, Ash. Oh, you're so good at this.
I'm brilliant at it. I didn't know English beforehand, so it's very difficult.
and then we had
the first one, which was in Gaelic, which was beautifully spoken by my partner Martin.
Yes, thank you, Martin.
No, Marston, yeah. And the second one
was in German, written. Yes, written. He actually wrote The Hobbit. I don't want to brag, but you know,
Michael Tolkien.
Exactly. Read, dictated by my husband, Michael or Michael. So yes, so there you go. So also just goes to show you, I guess, what a difference different language can make. And that's sort of what we discussed a little bit last time, right? Like,
well, yeah, because we got stuck on the map.
On the map, which I still want to talk about more. So this map. So the beginning of last episode, I asked you about where would you start with thinking about the archaeology of the Hobbit, and you said the map. And then we started talking about the map, and then we continued talking about the map, and then we started talking about language, and we talked about all sorts of things, and then it was the end of the episode. But we never actually continued our discussion on this survey that we're doing, the archaeological survey of the Hobbit. So this map. So we're going to stick with we both have an English version published by HarperCollins. So
yes, we're going with that one.
The same map, unlike the different maps in the other one. So where, as an archaeologist, if you're looking at this map and you need to conduct some sort of, I don't know, decide where to do excavations or do any other kind of survey, what would immediately spring to mind for you?
Well, I'm really curious what you think, because you don't really do desk assessments.
Exactly,
and stuff.
Right? So I'm thinking probably the river is an important part, because especially in prehistory, you see so many settlements gathering around the river banks, right? Because it was a source of food, it was a source of water, especially if it's a freshwater river. It's also a source of travel. So for trade, very important for people going up and down, traveling around. So yeah, I feel like there would be a lot of stuff around the rivers, potentially.
Yeah, and it's likely the only settlement there. So like that's actually depicted on the map. I'm looking. Obviously there's got like pointing towards like Ezagroth and Lake Long and the river and that. Yes. But it's actually the only tiny little picture you have is in the loop of the river towards the mountains, the Lonely Mountain. And there's a tiny little symbol that looks like a tiny town. So it's Lake Town, right? So yeah, it's Dale, Lord and Dale.
Lord and Dale. Yeah.
Which, you definitely look at the river.
Yeah.
I'd look at the language as well. We just talked about language, but I'd look at the language and I'd look at the place names.
Right.
Too.
Yeah.
So it'd tell you the kind of settlement patterns that you've got going on. So obviously you've got Elfish and you've got Dwarfish, so that's quite important.
Yeah, for
you've
cultural
also got
interactions taking place. And
what's going on there, where people are lying in the environment and moving around. You've also got, it kind of tells you, this is where men dwell and this is where, dwarfs dwell and this is where elves dwell. So that's quite interesting in as well.
And they have like where where lies Mirkwood the Great, there are spiders.
Like it's foreboding. It tells you don't go there.
The great worms.
Exactly. So it's telling you the history as well as the place names, the people, the locations,
land,
as well. And how they move. Where would you go? Oh, don't go there. Oh, this area is desolate. Don't go there because it's the desolation smog. And then, I'm pointing this way, so this is telling you go there for this thing and that thing. So there's lots of information that you would gather from this because all of these places are archaeological in interest. Maybe there's not spiders. I wouldn't bloody go there, but I wouldn't go into the mech.
You wouldn't go to the spiders.
Absolutely not. That actually was the worst thing when I was a kid watching this. Is it the Two Towers? Is that the spider?
The Two Towers.
Oh God. Nah, horrible. Thought of being cocooned. Horrifying. I don't mind anything else.
Which was the whole thing, right? Because Peter Jackson is an arachnophobe. And it was basically the sort of interior goal and aim of the special effects department, like the people who were building her and like doing all this stuff to make him like freak out. They were like, then we know we've done our job well.
Yes, they did very well because it haunts me still. Like the image of Frodo lying in the cocoon, his eyes are like wide open, like haunts me still. So yes,
quite freaky.
But we also have animals on it too, mythical kind of beasts, which would be very interesting. You've got the worm, you've got the dragon. So that tells you a lot about the culture too and the mythology and if they're real or not. It could also be telling you, oh, don't go there because this is where dragons are and stuff like that. So there's loads to pick out from here. And it would be quite a long desk-based assessment just based on this map.
And also you even have the fact that it's called Thror's Map. And that's written on it, which also shows you the author of the map. And I guess that's also important, right? Because then you're knowing, and that's the thing with history, which I've always struggled with because I'm a prehistorian. And it's that extra level of interpretive bias and that extra level of authorship.
Yeah, because obviously they have their own bias and what's important to them isn't important to everybody else. So you find that a lot with old military maps is obviously quite a lot of the settlements and things aren't really listed unless they're like important for strategic things but also resources. So stuff that they would have found interesting, like, well, obviously it's a dwarven map.
So the mountain, the mountains, like
is
massive.
The biggest thing.
Like half of the map is taken up with "Here of old was Thrain, king under the mountain," and then it's some tiny letters next to it, like, "And here was Girion, Lord of Dale." Like,
he was
there as well.
Exactly. So it's telling you a very structured narrative. But archaeologically, you can kind of strip that back and go, okay, this is important to this culture, therefore we need to mention that this is important here because this could be something like a feature that you could find or a settlement or something, and that would impact your research questions and ultimately your work, your investigation too. So there's lots to unpack there. We could do another episode on the map if you wanted.
Shall we now? I love that we were like, maybe we're going to look at different fantasy universes, and then last episode we were like, maybe this will just end up being a podcast about The Hobbit, and now we're like, maybe this will just be a podcast about this one map.
This one map of The Hobbit. That's it.
But it's really fascinating to see, and I love looking at like old maps and everything. I had a massive atlas at some point, and I used to love looking at just, I don't know, it's really interesting to see. And that's like modern maps, but looking at old maps, I imagine would be even more fascinating. Well, like you see all these old maps of how the world was perceived and everything. And then you have like England being just twice the size of Australia,
that's not correct. But even now our maps are distorted, like on Google Maps they're distorted. They're not actually how they look. Like Africa's a lot larger in real life than what we see on the map, and that is a very
intentional
that's a very intentional thing. And also depending on what's in the middle of the map, right? If you're looking at it from like a map perspective rather than like a sort of globe perspective, like there's already inherent bias.
America's in the middle, or whether Europe's in the middle, or whether Asia's in the middle, like it's very much
like if I open my Google map, London appears first. I'm nowhere near London, but that's what appears first.
Yeah. For
And
me,
then I
it's
have to figure out where.
Amsterdam, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So it goes to the nearest biggest city, not the capital, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I also think it's interesting that you open The Hobbit with this huge, very grandiose map in many ways.
Yeah.
If you're reading the German version.
The German one is the doodles as they were having their meeting, their marketing meeting. And then at the end they were like, we need a map. And he was like, hey guys, I might have something.
I have an idea. But then you open into, if you skipping past the reasoning about the map, which we've already talked about. But if you go into chapter 1, then it's immediately Hobbit, immediately cozy, immediately Hobbit-hole. It's like the exact opposite of the map.
This grand adventure. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah. Which is interesting because when we're looking at this map, we are not. Is Hobbiton even on here? It's not on here.
No, it's not.
No. So it's really like
because
biased in terms of what's
care.
depicted as well. Yeah. Which is, oh gosh, this is terrible. We're not going to even get into the Hobbit story because we're just going to already be focused on like Dale. We'll
Dale.
miss the whole journey.
That's it. Well, you can look into even the unexpected party, the first chapter.
Yes.
And you can kind of see what's important to hobbits and their own language as well.
Yes.
And how
in terms of what's depicted.
Yeah, and what's depicted. There's lots of stuff. Like you've got the ancestry, which is immediate in anything. It's interesting because there's like lineage in the map, importance in the map, but then you also have that kind of, and like the dwarven history, how oral history and written history is so important.
Yes.
Like you've got the hobbits, their history and their language is oral usually. There's not much written down for the hobbits. Right? I believe. I might be wrong. But then you've got the dwarven history, which is runic, and then you've got everything is written down.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the elves as well, because they've got so much time on their hands, they just write down everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting what you say with the lineage, because that's in this one as well. And I mean, that's the main thing of the Lord of the Rings, right? Is I think the first third of the book is basically just talking about hobbits. Like, not really, but like there's a lot about the background, the family, the history, the links, and all of that kind of thing. Like that is the grounding part of the Lord of the Rings. And it's also the grounding part, just in slightly more condensed form, of The Hobbit.
Yeah, because it tells you the different kind of personalities of hobbits and why they live in burrows and holes. And if you're a took, then you're a bit, you're a bit different.
Yeah.
You've got a bit of the took about you. Then they're more adventurous. And if you're a Baggins, not so much.
Yes. Yeah.
And it tells you lots of different stuff, even about their clothing and how their clothing is different. And then how they have no beards. That's like a huge thing. Yeah, so there's lots and lots that you can dig into. Even just the first chapter, there's just so much.
Yeah, and it's nice that and this is something that we can probably talk about a bit more in a little bit in terms of indeed the main focus and what's kind of grounded is important for each culture. It does seem to be that lineage and that history, which is still something that you see in the modern day a lot of the time, right? A lot of people are very focused on where they come from and who's been there for how long and, how you've moved around the world. And that's not something new.
No, absolutely. I think that it's who you belong to, where you're from, and it's very important to everybody else to contextualize you sometimes. Yeah. Like even in my small village, if someone comes in and they don't quite know who you are, they go, who do you belong to?
Yes.
Who do you belong to? And you're like, no one.
Myself. That old woman.
I'm from Newcastle. But immediately, if my partner, if he's like talking to someone, they go, who do you belong to? And he's like, oh, well, my family are this. They'll go, oh, I know that. Like, you know the history already.
Yeah. But it's interesting to see how much that has changed. Like we still have that kind of perception in the modern day. But if you look at that archaeologically, that was also because you were very tied to your culture and very tied to where you were from and all of this kind of thing at some point. But actually, we don't even know what people were like in prehistory. Maybe it was the same. Maybe they were like, oh, I am from clan this. Or maybe it was completely the opposite.
It could have been, absolutely. Well, this is the thing. A lot of people think we're tied to landscape and land. And yes, of course, there's lots of like national, kind of identity with land, absolutely. And that makes complete sense to me. But we're not. We move really rapidly as humans. Even from prehistory, you can see like there's a recent study that they did at Rathsay, which is just a island off the coast of Skye, in the Hebrides of Scotland. And they recently found footprints and Paleolithic site, which is amazing because at that point, a lot of Skye was glacial. And there was a land bridge between Rathsay and the mainland, I can't say mainland Skye because it's an island, but Skye. And when they were doing work, they realized that these Paleolithic people who had come to Rathsay had come from continental Europe, around Austria.
Oh, wow.
They had walked the whole way.
Whole way along, yeah.
Like, that's mad. That's absolutely mad to me that they've passed glacials, like, melting of the glaciers and stuff like that, all the way to Rathsay, and they've stayed there.
Yeah. Well, that's like the Paleo-Inuit, the Dorset culture, which is what I was looking at for my PhD. And they have a massive area that they covered, and they didn't use dog sleds, so at least we don't have any evidence of it. Mm-hmm. They didn't have large, like, ocean-going vessels, so they only had small, like, kayaks and stuff. And, like, they managed to move around the landscape, and they managed to have this huge area that they covered. And you see a lot of, I mean, gosh, that's a whole other discussion that we could get into, like in terms of if you're looking at the material culture, for example, it looked very, very same, mm-hmm. But then actually I showed through my thesis that if you look at it in a different light, like microwear analysis, then you can see that actually there's a lot of variation in lots of different ways. But yeah, it's how do we even differentiate between different cultures and different ideas? And I think that's also very different for prehistoric cultures that you're looking at compared to historic culture, because then you've got a whole extra added thing of like, no, but this is my lineage. And then, it's also made up lineages sometimes, right? Like in terms of, like the link with Troy, and all of the later kings in England that wanted to somehow link themselves back with like the nobility and the royalty of Troy who had to flee during the Trojan War. And there's this whole thing about the nobility of England coming from these fleeing refugees, and that's why they have the blood of kings in them, because it's this ancient classical lineage and everything. And it's this whole that's essentially what The Hobbit is about in many ways, though, isn't it? It's about a group of dwarves who are related to the people of of the Lonely Mountain and have been kicked out by a big dragon because he's quite terrifying and hoards the gold. And then you've got them trying to reclaim something of their identity. It's a journey to their home. Yes. And understanding what happened and the greed of and everything. So, it is interesting and I often think with like genealogy, when you watch those like genealogy shows when like Danny Dyer is related to like Henry VIII and stuff like that. And you're kind of like, did nobody lie? Like, did no one lie? Like there must be some woman somewhere being like, you're definitely the
father. Like surely somebody lied somewhere. Like you can't trace it back that cleanly. I think people are messy. That's one thing archaeologists know. People are very messy.
Post-processualism.
So like life is messy and people leave a lot of stuff about. So I kind of almost go, are you sure you're related to such and such? Like, are you positive?
Oh, you know what? I'm starting to get a bit peckish. Shall we? I think it might be time for 11s. Shall we have a quick break for 11s?
Ooh, how about roast mutton?
Okay, I'll make the roast mutton later, okay? Sorry if I didn't.
You better.
Roast a whole mutton.
Starving.
So, okay, we've talked a little bit about the like desk-based assessment, looking at maps and things like that. We've talked a little bit about, I guess, sort of chatting to people, like and learning their lineages, learning about what's important to them. I guess something that we probably should address, because there's quite a lot of times where you have these definitions or these words that are like everyday words, which we use all the time, and then they have a slightly different connotation in archaeology. I mean, we're talking about language. Let's talk about archaeological language, I guess. So we've been talking a lot about surveys, archaeological surveys. And I guess some people listening might think, but wait, a survey is like, did you like this? Yes or no? Or like, where do you live? Or, all of these sorts of things. But that's not an archaeological survey.
No, I mean, you could try and do a survey like that. It would be a bit of like, you need an ethics form, if you're talking to people. But yeah, an archaeological survey, it can be a few different things. It can be on the ground stuff where you literally are surveying an environment and you're walking and trying to find, sites.
Like field
walking, artifact, for finds, field walking and stuff. Or you can be doing something where you're basically doing an overview and trying to understand the whole area as a concept. So this includes like ethnographic stuff. Yes. It includes written text, it includes maps, it includes photos, aerial photos, it includes LiDAR reports, it includes geophys. So there's like, you're trying to gather as much information as possible as you can about a certain place or like a site, maybe sometimes people too, because obviously if something hasn't really changed in the area, like in Lord of the Rings, like a few things change over the hundreds of thousands of years that the Lord of the Rings encompasses. But for the hobbits, they kind of live the same life they have lived for thousands of years. So you kind of go into that environment and you're trying to find as much information, because archaeology is just information that we need to record.
Oh, wow.
Is that broad? Too broad?
I think I like that definition, and I also don't like that definition.
Oh, wow.
It's like
I like it.
Conflict in my mind. I'm like, oh boy, because then part of me was like, yeah, that's a great definition. And then part of me was like, wait, no, I'm not just a information writer.
But you are.
Dreams.
But you kind of are.
Imagination.
Imagination. I've been touching the artifacts. There is, but that's all. That's what we do. We record, we collect, because otherwise that stuff's going to go. It's going to go disappearing, But there's so many different ways you can do that. There's that's why you can't just be one thing. Well, you sometimes are just one thing as an archaeologist. You go into a sort of discipline because if it was so vast, there's so much stuff that we can do in archaeology. And that's why you have your geophysicists. And that's why you have Tilly, your microware analysis. That's why you have your illustrators, because it's a team effort. You do archaeology. You can do it on your own, but it's not as fun.
Yeah, exactly. But so I mean, at the moment we're still starting with this preliminary survey. So doing field walking could be a fun thing to do as well. I don't know, looking at this map. So we already mentioned that maybe the rivers would be an interesting place to walk around and stuff as well. But walking around in Hobbiton, for example, in preparation for this unexpected party in chapter 1.
But also a big event. That tells you a lot of stuff about people.
Yes.
It also leaves a lot of traces of stuff. You can look at their food, you can look at what they're eating, how they eat. You can look at how they interact with each other, who sits at the table, who doesn't sit at the table, who's cooking, who's not cooking, who's doing the labor, who's not doing the labor. There's so much stuff that you can pull out that can interact with gender archaeology and Marxist archaeology. There's lots of different theories that you can apply to people because it's the way that you're observing them.
Yeah, and see how the society has developed over time, depending on... I mean, just when you were talking about gender roles, this book, which I have another podcast to talk about it on. So it's The Patriarchs by Angela Saini, which was, a book that was on the shortlist for our theme that we always have every March to celebrate International Women's Month in the Archaeo Book Club. We always have the theme Women of the Past. And it was on the shortlist for that theme, but we didn't get picked. And a bunch of us were so disappointed that we decided, actually, we're just going to read it ourselves as alongside the main book, which was also good, The King's Witches, we also read. And so, it's amazing because it's basically, since I've read it, I've just recommended it to everyone.
You sent me a copy.
I sent you a copy. I actually need to read this book. And she was like, I don't know. I don't really have the budget for books at the moment. It's like, I'm just sending you a copy. I'm not having any excuse to not read this book. So, yes. But it was because, it basically asked the question of why is patriarchy the norm in the majority of the modern world? And the thing is, it's not even the norm in the majority of the modern world, which I find really interesting. So they talked about a couple of case studies of different societies where it's matriarchal. And then it's really interesting because matriarchy is not the opposite of patriarchy. It's not that women are in charge. It's that there's just different focus given on different parts of the society and the way that families are structured. So for example, uncles will look after their sisters' kids rather than the father being the sort of main one. So it's all focused around the female line rather than the male line. But that doesn't mean the women are in charge. It's just that the way that the society is structured. And something that was really interesting is that at one point she was talking about like how the way that families are formed is then interesting, because rather than women being sent away and being somewhere sort of new and foreign and potentially without friends and without a support system, and that's how they can then be more easily kind of coerced into, you know, becoming a lower on the hierarchy, it's the men are sort of moving in between places, but they have the different bonds that are linking them. So it's not as dependent, like the men are not as dependent on the families than women are on their new husbands' families in a lot of patriarchal societies. So it's like, I don't know. Anyway, I'm simplifying it really badly, but like, go and read it. Definitely. If you're listening and you want to learn about it, it's amazing. It's eye-opening. It made me realize how much I like to think of myself as like a feminist and, you know, pretty open-minded in regards to that kind of stuff. And it made me realize how much bias I just subconsciously have in my mind. Like, which was... Yeah. Anyway, Angela Saini, The Patriarchs. Go read it.
That's my next read.
So the reason we were talking about this, sorry, I went off on a rant there, was because, looking at the way that society is formed can give you a really interesting perspective into how the way that, and this is what we were talking about last episode as well, how the way that you think is the norm isn't necessarily the norm and isn't necessarily the way for these
and it's also like, even if you're observing it, you're probably placing what you believe is the norm, unless you're extremely dissociated from it, which would be very difficult to do, which is a big problem in ethnographic sources, is where you're trying to place you're trying to understand something through your own lens. So 100%. Then you're automatically kind of misinterpreting what's actually going on. So you really have to like pull yourself out of it in order to fully understand or even ask questions.
Well, this is the thing, right? Involving the community is like essential in those sorts of things, which is why a lot of archaeology is also like community archaeology these days. There's a lot more of that, right? And we've talked about that, I think, on previous episodes with Wouter Verschoof van der Vaart, for example, who did a lot of that. And so it's a lot of that. And then you can see that actually in this first chapter, right? An unexpected party. And it's that kind of culture clash between the hobbits and as Bilbo and the dwarves coming in, and this like completely different perception of like what is the norm, what is societally acceptable and socially acceptable, and you know, all of that kind of thing. So which I find really fascinating. And that's also quite if you look at it from an archaeological perspective, that also tells you a lot already about the cultures that you're going to be interacting with, and potentially the historic and prehistoric cultures from which they are descended.
Yeah, exactly. Even the way that they communicate between the hobbits and the dwarfs, like songs for the dwarfs are a major part of their communication style, while hobbits not necessarily.
Which I always found fascinating. And I think we discussed this a little bit when we did our live read-through on the APN Discord like a year ago. It was ages ago now. The fact that the dwarves are like sort of nomadic, they're moving around. And we talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the episode. It's because they lost their spot and they lost their culture and they lost their kind of home in that respect. But so they're only carrying around like essentials. And something that is apparently essential is like a flute and a trumpet. And
it's a whole orchestra.
Yeah. No, I can't take this bread. I have to take my French horn with me, right?
Yeah, because they'll get bread from anywhere they go elsewhere. Food is accessible to them. So that's interesting. And we'll probably talk about it a little bit later in the survey of life. That is The Hobbit. But we'll talk about like music as well and how there's structure in their musical instruments. Like, you know, Thorin has a harp. He's the king. There's a hierarchy in the instruments that they play that tells you who they are immediately. So that's material culture in itself. Is like, if you are anyway know a little bit about this culture, you could go into an environment where they are playing and singing and communicating, and you would know who's who immediately.
Yes, true. Yeah, because you could tell that from that. Yeah, I love this. I've just skipped to a random page and it says like, I suppose you will stay to supper, Bilbo said in his politest, unpressing tones. Of course, said Thorin, and after we shall go through the business until late, and we must have some music first. Music. Yes, of course. We all need a sing-song before we discuss politics. I feel like the world would be a much better place if we just all had a sing-song, but before we discuss politics.
Depends on how I'm like in my mood. If I haven't had a coffee, then probably no. If you start singing at me like some Disney princess, I will start to throttle you. I'll be like, Tilly, shut up. You won't survive. I'll become Smaug. Like, you know.
Okay, never mind. I take it back. But
Sing songs are very good in their place. I am Bilbo.
That's true. So yeah, and I think that's what this is all about. And also you have the social aspect of the survey, right? So indeed, looking at where people stand in terms of hierarchy in the society, but also how the lineages are formed, and how the stories are told. Because that's also really interesting. Because we talked before about how there's a lot literally carved in stone for the dwarves in terms of the runes and everything, but also their songs are so important in terms of sort of storytelling and remembering who they are in that respect.
Yeah. And that's like, it's almost in conflict with the kind of traditional histories and the runes and stuff, because then you have the oral tradition of singing, which is almost older, feels older.
Which is also interesting in terms of like looking at, so I am in no way, shape or form an Egyptologist, full disclaimer coming up. So, but something that I do remember from when I was looking up the Rosetta Stone at some point for one of my little Instagram reel things, and there's different kinds of hieroglyphics. So you had certain hieroglyphics and certain texts and scripts that were used for sort of official notifications and were used for the upper class and all of that kind of thing. But then you actually had sort of lower middle class script that was a different form of script. And then, of course, the lower classes wouldn't have known how to read and write. So for them, it was the oration that was the most important. And in some ways, that might have been translated more into songs or something like that, right?
Yeah, and that can relate a lot to material culture as well. Like in an environment, you can see how literate people are. Yeah. So, like, for instance, this is such a modern thing, but do you know why barbershops have those signs outside them? You know how they're like...
Oh, with the swirling colours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's to delineate that it's a barbershop.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, because people wouldn't have been able to read necessarily barbershop.
Well, and you even have that with, like, pharmacies, right? In
pretty much the signs.
Every country, it'll be the green cross or something, or a snake twirling around something.
Yeah, it's Asclepius's doctor symbol. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
There you go. That's how you know it's Asclepius' temple. Yeah, there's a snake and there's Herodotus as well. Herodotus and Asclepius. But so the codes that doctors go by. All that kind
sort
of
of different symbolism, like how sometimes it is actually cross-cultural, and it can be.
Yeah, that's how you know a church, because it's a Catholic church will have a cross on it.
Yes, right.
You know, stuff like that.
The classic one. And most major religions, indeed, right, will have some form of symbolism.
And you know it's a hobbit home because it has a round door.
It has a round door, yeah. Yeah.
Which
I think is probably a good point to end this particular one. I'm starting to get a little bit peckish, actually. How about... some lunch? What do you fancy?
Well, I've been asking for roast mutton, but somebody doesn't seem to want to get me roast mutton.
That's true. I will get on the roast mutton straight
I'm going to
away.
get cranky in a sec.
Okay, then I'll get on to that. Well, that's about it then for this episode of Am My Trowel. We hope that you enjoyed this little discussion about the language and the society of the Hobbits. As always, please do like, subscribe, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps to support the show and it helps people find our show. If you're interested in hearing more archaeology content, make sure to check out all of the other shows on the Archaeology Podcast Network. If you have any comments on the episode or maybe ideas for future topics that we can cover in upcoming chapters, or if you just want to get in touch, you can find all of our contact information as well as links and further information on what we discussed today in the show notes.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. The Archaeology Podcast Network's chief editor is Rachel Roden. Our executive producer is Ashley Airy. Our social media and newsletter coordinator is Matilda Siebrecht. The APN was founded by Chris Webster and Tristan Boyle on December 1st, 2014. We're supported by our amazing podcast hosts, many volunteers, and listeners like you. Check out membership at www.archpodnet.com/members.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.